Hello, my name is Glen Eaton. For over 30 years I was a blue-collar worker, a journeyman steel fabricator, and a working class man. After a number of personal circumstances, I had to move to Libby, Montana from Antioch, California in 1991. While there, I began working for associates of my uncle who purchased his store, a Purina dealer. The name of this business was Kootenai Feed and Supply. From 1992 to 1994, I was the sole employee handling large amounts of tonnage being delivered to and delivered from the store. Throughout my entire employ, my typical work week schedule was 6 days a week, being 5 9-hour days and an 8-hour day on Saturdays. This was a 53-hour weekly work schedule. My wage was $5 an hour. I was employed by Kootenai Feed and Supply for just under 2 years, and moving tonnage was my primary duty while under their employ. On a fateful Saturday, while finishing the unload of a company truckload of Purina brand grains that had been received the preceding day from Washington State, I bent over to pick up one of 3 remaining 80-pound bags. About halfway bent over, my entire upper torso from the waist up collapsed in on itself at least an inch. At that point, I was stuck bent over and was unable to stand up straight. Then the pain rushed in, the pain being serious enough to know I was in trouble. I did not know what to do, so I fell down on my belly in the back of that truck. I then hobbled on my belly backwards out of the truck, and the pain returned. Then I found my supervisor, Debbie Rockwood, managing to speak through the pain and telling her what had just transpired. She then coldly looked at me and told me that I was to be careful as they did not have any workers' compensation insurance on me, their primary employee. While the pain was unbearable, I continued to work for another 2 to 3 months further until I decided to call in and report that I would be going to the hospital to inspect my back injury. I needed to know what happened to me. Only 10 minutes later, in direct retaliation for this act, I was called back and told I was fired. I was also told that I had owed them money. In an attempt to save their own face, Debbie said that she would pay for a doctor and sent me to a chiropractor. Dr. Cox, who was a licensed medical doctor under the state of Montana's Medical Examiners Board. I attempted to file for unemployment coverage, only to learn that the Kootenai Feed and Supply Company had failed to report my earnings to the state of Montana's unemployment department. They had illegally reported 0 earnings for the entire time that I was there. I had proven my earnings through keeping my check stub records and showing them to the unemployment office. This led to a state unemployment hearing. While in this hearing, the owner, Debbie Rockwood, lied to the arbitrator, contradicted herself about workers' compensation coverage by claiming that I had signed private insurance papers and not workers' compensation coverage, which in itself is crime, as private insurance is not a replacement for workers' compensation coverage, and even brought forth false witness to my actions while under her employ from an adjourning taxidermist business. The result of the state unemployment hearing was that I was to refund benefits already paid out to me. Due to confusion about process and the inability to get any assistance from various authorities, I had no choice but to go back to work and endure the pain. There was no work to be found locally. I then relocated to Wenatchee, Washington to return to my primary trade of steel fabrication. I was hired immediately, and after working at a fabrication shop for a year and a half, I collapsed on the floor as my left leg failed me. I attempted to stand and then fell down again face first into a pile of steel shavings. It was as if my leg was not there. It was this incident that led me to a workers' comp claim in the state of Washington, which was classified as aggravation to a pre-existing condition. I learned that my injury was a severe spinal cord injury. This doctor stated that my specific injuries are mostly experienced by Olympic weightlifters, showing the severity of the tonnage and the gravitas of the situation of which I was subject. Due to the crimes committed against me, I retained a private attorney named Gary Seaman. Mr. Seaman instructed me to bring to him Dr. Cox's treatment records, and Mr. Seaman held on my case for 6 months, and after this 6 months period he spontaneously dropped himself as my representation, disappeared, and therefore canceled any then upcoming court proceedings and subsequent hearings. He was never present for any hearings that were held, including the few telehearings held on the phone. It was over a decade later, in the early 2000s, that I had contacted the Department of Labor and Industries to try to reopen my workers' compensation claim, of which Gary Seaman had robbed me. I had been living in abject poverty, unemployed, and being supported by Social Security Disability, or SSDI. It was only then that I had learned that Gary Seaman and the doctor that Deborah paid for, Dr. Cox, had both withheld my documentary evidence to the state. This is a crime. In the event that a workplace injury occurs, law requires all documents to be turned over to the state as a part of the reporting process. As far as I could tell, no one involved ever even filed a report. I did not, because I believe that so-called authorities around me, including the medical doctors and lawyers, were there to assist me. Very clearly, this was not the case. After learning this, I went on a campaign contacting all of my elected representatives and attempting to find assistance in exposing the crimes that had been committed against me. Until then, I was an apolitical man with little concern for politics or even the governmental systems of which are governed. After this, I learned of the true and unadulterated cancer that had grown to overtake the system. None of my elected representatives were willing to assist me. Some, including the office of Dennis Rehberg, a now former congressman, even threatened me. State agencies, including the Montana Department of Labor and Industries, contacted the police to claim I was violent and deranged man. The Office of the Disciplinary Council hearing I launched against Gary Seaman led nowhere. The hearing of the Medical Examiners Board I launched against Dr. Cox forbade me to know its outcome. I went through all available recourse of action as a blue-collar working man who never had to care about the world outside of his job, except for those elements of the world that I built myself. Most interestingly, the only individual who said he would help me in any capacity was then State Representative Ryan Zinke, Ryan Zinke told me that he would assist me in my pursuit against Gary Seaman only if I was able to find a second witness willing to testify before the state legislature. While I found many more of Gary Seaman's victims, as he had been stealing from injury victims for decades, I found that these victims did not wish to join me in my pursuit out of fear of retaliation. As such, I was unable to fulfill Representative Zinke's request. During this time, Representative Zinke outright asked me if I believed that the state was involved against me in my plight. I do not know, but after everything that I have been through, I believe it may be fact. Ryan Zinke is now a sitting member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Yet, after all of this, while living in complete poverty from my inability to work, I was in such intense pain that I had to resort to prescription painkillers. From 2007 to 2013, I was a victim of the prescription opioid crisis that continues to face the nation to this day. I was one of the many Americans in pain who was falsely advertised that the opioid drugs were non-addictive and with few side effects. Due to having taken over 10,000 oxycodones and OxyContin tablets over this 6-year period, I now have permanent opioid-induced bowel disorders leading to an untreatable and severe constipation. Just a few weeks ago, my claim against the company Indo-PI Trust Fund had resolved. I have now been awarded only $390, serving as yet another example of the nation's failure to protect its citizens. I had returned to this state in 2000 and to this area of the state after I had learned what had happened to me. I came here to try and find Gary Seaman's other victims. It was only a few years ago that Gary Seaman committed murder due to a love affair involving his secretary, mistress, and the man she was cheating on him with. He was convicted of murder and given a 60-year sentence. Now, with the help of a hired advocate, I am able to do what I was not before. I am able to organize my story and the 30 years of evidence in my possession. Prepare publicly released statements such as this one. Publish my story to the public via the modern internet and contact large amounts of people directly in a plea for accountability. I have tried and tried again in this affair. I believe after everything, I am entitled to compensation just like anybody else. Especially since I live off of Social Security disability and have lived long-term in a homeless shelter for over a decade and a half. However, this is not my primary goal. My goal with this project is to receive accountability and an investigation to the many actions committed against me over these 30 years. The actions committed against me are not civil, they are criminal. Whether the state was involved or not, I do not know. Through the Glen Eaton Justice Project, we are contacting numerous governmental agencies, press organizations, advocacy groups, and many other individuals and entities who may be able to assist. Among those contacted already have included the Office of the President and the Attorney General of the United States. The Glen Eaton Justice Project is calling for a formal investigation into the activities committed by the state of Montana against Glen Eaton over these affairs outside of the purview of the state authority. Until such a time, we will continue to appeal to the public document our actions, and publish preliminary evidence, files we have involving these many related incidents. Our overall goal is to inform an uninformed public about the legal atrocities and incidents of tampering with justice that can have happened in this country when so-called authorities become corrupt or unchecked and unbalanced. You can find out more about my story at https Glen Eaton neocities.org. I am Glen Eaton. Thank you for your time.